Mega Beedrill got buffed in Roria Conquest, finally receiving Gunk Shot, making it finally be able to hit Pokemon like Moltres or Zapdos without risking contact. So let's see if it's any good. Forgot to mention in the intro, but Beedrill also got buffed Twineedle, which now is 50 base power times 2, which is low-key insane. Also, it's abusing its powerful U-turns for insane damage to make a pretty nice breaking core with Volt and Mola. Mola is the team's Wish Passer, being able to keep the team's Breakers, Beedrill, and Raging Bolt healthy so they can break through the opponent's team while keeping their longevity on the field. Also, it's a nice wall against special attackers since this Mola runs special defense. Pretty standard defensive landers, set instead going for Defog instead of Stealth Rocks. It's a pretty nice U-turner in the team too. Not much else to say. Raging Bolt is the final part of the breaking core, rocking choice specs and abusing wall-breaking bolt switches and Draco Meteors. I use Dragon Hammer instead of Dragon Pulse because in Roria Conquest, Dragon Hammer changes to special damage if user's special attack is higher than physical. The Gambit is a pretty usual offensive set, except instead of running Adamant, this one runs Timid to outspeed other Kingdom Bits and deliver low kicks for one-hit kick. This is a kinda unorthodox Heatran set, running both Taunt and Stealth Rock at the same time, while also having Farium Z. Mostly on this team, it's a Mega Meganium wall since outside of Heatran, this team loses to it extremely badly. Anyways, the Poke Paste for the team is in the description. Now let's jump into the battles. Looks like we're dealing with a Trick Room team here, so I will lead Hetron to immediately taunt their Trick Room setter to try and prevent the Trick Room from going up. Seems my prediction was in fact correct. We lead with Porygon too, so let's taunt it and see if we catch him off guard. God damn! Seems like they use Volt Switch instead of Teleport. Kinda unorthodox, but alright, I can deal with all that. Alright, I'm pretty sure Furium, Z Magma Storm, one-hit KOs the Big Bear, and they probably think I'm gonna switch Lando, so time to go bear hunting. Well, seems like they predicted me pretty well. Fair play, but it isn't the end of the world. I'm kinda hesitating between Earth Power, thinking they'll Volt Switch again, or Taunt, just to be safe. But I think Taunt is the move. They may think I will Earth Power, thinking they'll Volt Switch again. And it seems like my prediction was correct once again, wowie Zoe. Time to get some chip on Porygon too. They switch into Ursaluna once again, but this time I can't stay since they know I lost my Z move. So this time I will switch into Landorus to try and live the incoming headlong rush. But if they Sword Stance, I'll have to play around it. Predicted correctly once again. Now I think I should U-turn into Kingambit to tank the incoming Facade and threaten them with knockoff or low kick. Now here I decide to click Knockoff to damage the potential switch in from Mons, like Porygon, or just heavily damage the bear. If they don't switch out, the bear will be at extremely low HP, and if they Lunar Dance or Healing Wish it, it will no longer have the burn, rendering it useless. Well, they definitely did not switch in and Gambit is now dead. But it's not the end of the world, I'll just switch in Heatron and Earth Power it too. Kill it off while still threatening damage on Porygon too. Well, time to click Taunt again, I guess. Well, since I can't taunt Hatering him, gonna just Magma Storm it and take on Trick Room. Or, I guess him not taking on Trick Room, that Porygon is quite annoying. Time for potential man to come in and take on the predicted Volt Switch and pull Mawile into the battlefield. And I in fact pull in Marowak instead of Mawile. Well, it's potential man time anyways. Time for Lando to take this Flare Blitz or Poltergeist. Well, I think he is switching out to not take on an Earthquake, so I'm gonna quickly U-turn. Looks like U-turn was the correct play. Time for Heatran to come in, since Cresselia isn't in Twineedle range yet. Let's see if Porygon comes in once again on this Magma Storm. Okay, this time I think Porygon will click Volt Switch once again. So I will set up Stealth Rocks, so if a Cresselia comes in, it will be again in Twineedle range. Oh well, it seems like I was wrong and Trick Room is up. Will I be able to survive 5 nights in Trick Room? Since I know he is always faster with Volt Switch, and staying in would only waste his Trick Room turns, I'm gonna Magmaster him to catch a potential threat. Now Cresselia's only choice is to either stay in and waste Trick Room turns or Healing Wish any Pokemon. Let's see what happens. Ursaluna comes in on the Healing Wish, but since it was now healed of any status and it now doesn't have Flame Orb, it's rendered completely useless. I'm gonna sacrifice Heatron here to keep Landorus healthy and able to take a few hits. And if they Swords Dance, free chip is free chip. Well, that was awkward. Anyways, goodbye Heatron, you served the team well. Time for the big Mola to come in and tank everything in the world. Time to pass a Lomomola's wish onto Landorus to make it healthy once again.
Nom nom nom.
Time to pivot out on this Ursaluna, predicting a switch. Potential man comes and is ready to deal some heavy damage. Let's Twineedle this Porygon out of existence. Now that Marowak is in knockoff range, time to send him back to his mother. Mawile finally comes in and forces Beedrill out of the field. But have no fear, Landorus shall be here. Time to Earthquake this bad boy. While we're here, why don't you like and subscribe? This is my first video, so any like or sub helps out. Thanks! After this awkward wait, they finally switch into Porygon and decide to take on the damage from Lando. And now Porygon is finally dead and sent into the trash bin. To not risk contact damage from Rocky Helmet, I decide to hard switch into Alomomola, since U-turn wouldn't do much anyways. And now, Trick Room is set up once again. 5 turns of agony, here I come. I decide to use Wish once again and pass it on to Landorus to keep it healthy. Once again, the evil bear comes in, and not to risk taking too much damage from Headlong Rush, I decide to hard switch into Lent.
Nom nom nom.
I think about using U-turn on the bear and take on a plus 170 base power stab facade. But I decide to preserve Landorus and hard switch in a Lomomola to take it on. I predict Ursaluna will stay in once again and headlong rush me for a greedy knockout. But I decide to play against that and I hard switch Landorus onto the battlefield. I made a mistake and now I have to pay for it. I use Earthquake to damage Hatterene, but now I have to survive 5 more turns in Trick Room. I hard switch in Alomomola to preserve health on the Landorus, predicting a Psychic Noise or Dazzling Gleam. I decide to flip turn to pivot in a threat that can easily kill the opponent's Pokemon. Oh, Alomomola is doomed. Well, now this is scary. I decide to switch in Raging Bolt to potentially bait out a Fairy move, and then switch in Beedrill to stall more turns of Trick Room. Damn, that poor hack committed it for nothing. That's sad, dude. The bear comes in and it's the final turn of Trick Room. I decide to sacrifice the potential man to preserve my health on both Raging Bolt and He had potential. Man. Now that Trick Room is no more, it's time for Raging Bolt to switch in and drop a Draco.
Now that's a lot of damage!
But while now switches in and threatens Raging Bolt out, and we are required to switch in Lando. It is time to Earthquake this bad boy once again. It doesn't kill, and that's fine, since we still got Raging Bolt in the back. Good game. Okay, this looks like some sort of Sun Electric Terrain fusion team, so I'll lead Beedrill, predicting Tapu Koko start. Potential man here is going to use U-turn, predicting Great Tusk Switch, since it's the best on this team at taking Poison-type damage. And the momentum from the U-turn will allow me to swiftly pivot into Big Mola. Alomomola here will continue the momentum by flip turning on Great Tusk. Hatterene switches in on the flip turn, and because of its item eject button, it practically ignores our switch by switching out itself, essentially breaking our momentum and taking it over. Iron Valiant switches in and threatens our Lomomola, but Big Mola will always tank no matter what. I decide to use Toxic to put a timer onto the Valiant, essentially dooming it to die quickly. Swords Danced Iron Valiant is sadly too much for Big Mola. I decide to protect and then switch into Landorus to get as much toxic damage as possible. It seems like they banked on Alamomola staying in, but now that ended up with them at -1 and only with more damage taken. I decide to stay in, predicting their last move to be Spirit Break, which in fact doesn't kill Lando and would result in Iron Valiant dying. Oh well, I was wrong, but everything is fine. Landorus served his job to the team. In retrospect, what I did here was dumb. What I should have done here is immediately switch into a Lomomola instead of Beedrill and use Protect, and the toxic damage should have killed Iron Valiant. Still, I predicted it clicking Thunder Punch and switch in Bolt to fully tank it and let Die Iron Valiant die. Great Tusk threatens Raging Bolt with a one-hit knockout, so I decide to switch in Alamomola to tank the incoming damage. Here I decided to take back my momentum and used Flip Turn on Great Tusk to switch out. Potential Man enters into the battlefield once again and still threatens Tapu Koko with a one-hit knockout. Nice chip on the Great Tusk. Potential Man did his job right now. Time to pivot out. Raging Bolt enters on the Charizard, threatening it with a knockout. I decide to Volt Switch, knowing nothing that Charizard can throw out knocks me out. Well, also, if Tusk enters, I can swiftly hard switch into Big Mola and Flip Turn on it.
Now that's a lot of damage!
I'm going to switch into Potential Man, since he's the fastest Pokemon on the field. And here enters Iron Moth, who is boosted both by Electric Terrain and Sun. Wholly insane. How will it do against Potential Man's U-turns, though? Let's see. Took it pretty well. Now I'm going to switch into Heatron to absorb the potential fire move heading my way. Now with Flash Fire and Sun boosted Heatron, I think this Z move is just a free knockout button even against this Moth. Bye-bye Hatterene, Hysterium Z burnt her to a crisp. Now it's time for Heatron to head out and for Big Mola to enter against this Tusk. Looks like they predicted my switch, but no worries since Heatron fully walls Iron Moth any day of the week unless it's hidden power ground. Good game, thanks for watching, and see you soon.